it's been 2 months since my last nickname. So, I'm going to talk to you about conversations, communication. One of the things I do now is I work for a software company, and we make software that helps people communicate. And I spend a lot of time thinking about and studying how people conversate through the digital sphere, but just in general as well. And when you think about communication, at its core, at its essence, it's really just an exchange of data. You know, you have some information that you want somebody to react to. They react to it, they give it back to you. And it keeps going on until eventually you reach a data set that you're both happy with. But I don't want you to think that all communication is just dispassionate data, right? There's an emotional content to it as well, and that depends on the context of the communication. The when, the where, the why, and the how communication happens. And that is influenced by the content, the data, but it also is influenced inward by the context that it's happening in. And communication in and of itself is probably the foundation of civilization. I mean, it's the demarcation line between pre and post history. I mean, that's what civilization is about. It is about communication. And communication does a lot of things. And one of the things it actually does that's really powerful is it allows you to transcend time. It shifts time. Unless you keep information inside of you and you take it to the grave, information lives beyond your person. And the cavemen knew this in the prehistory days. And, you know, remember that time we threw spears into that animal and it died and we danced around it? Let's draw it on the wall. So our sons and daughters can remember that and relive it. So they knew that communication transcended just their context in that moment. And another thing that happens with communication is when you apply technology to it, it actually transcends distance. It moves further than earshot, right? So our enemies are coming from the north to kill us. If you paint that on a cave wall, everybody's going to die. But if you apply some technology to it, it can live beyond the distance that you're talking in that particular moment. And what you do is you create rule sets and you create grammar around communication, because the fidelity of communication is actually pretty poor, and there's a lot of signal degradation. So we create rules that allow us to be very precise about the ways we communicate. And that makes communication very, very powerful. And that's why literacy was wielded as a weapon for many, many years. If you were the only guy in your village who was able to read, when the king's laws came down, you were basically the king because you could interpret for everybody else. So ergo, information is power. But what we see now and what's happening now is that communication is being reframed. Communication has gone from a top-down flow from the king to the people to the bottom, from bottom up. It's like everybody now has the power to communicate in the palm of their hand, literally. You know, you can transcend time and space, and you can circumvent power structures through the mechanisms directly in the palm of your hand, and that's really amazing. I mean, this is the first time in history where we're not dependent on other people to tell us how to communicate. And communication is changing, for better or for worse, whether you like it or not. And we're never going to go back to the way communication used to be. And you know, we have this romantic notion of people sitting down and writing prose. And when was the last time anybody here wrote a letter to anybody? I mean, we've actually outsourced the emotion of letter writing to greeting card companies, right? So why not get rid of grammar and syntax and everything, and let the context of communication dictate the ways in which we do it? And it's actually society is being affected profoundly by these new communications, this revolution, right? The notion of friends and followers is totally different today than it was even 10 years ago, right? And the problem, this raises kind of like this existential crisis from an anthropological standpoint, because we're not wired for this, right? We're wired for a very limited amount of interpersonal contact, and now we've just our scope is just huge. And the problem is that the learning curve is actually vertical. You know, we had hundreds of years to adjust to the printing press. You know, you had like decades to adjust to TV and radio. You know, literally these revolutions, it's an ongoing revolution. These changes are happening overnight. And we're not sure what we're doing, because we're kind of trading transparency for freedom. We're not sure if it's intimacy or if it's scale. And these are profound questions that we're forced to grapple with. But the evolution is happening so quickly, and we have our feet in both camps. And you know, is it one or the other? And it's probably not. You know, there's probably a purple pill when it comes to communication. And you know, it could be the best of both worlds. I'm not really sure, but I do know one thing. I know that if governments or the power structure is so worried about this type of communication that they're looking to step in on a moment's notice to shut it down, that we're actually going in the right direction. And this is powerful stuff, and we need to be very protective of it. But leaving that all aside, and you get rid of the mayhem and the mania surrounding communication, there's one form of communication that always works, and that's sitting down with a pal and having a pint. So keep doing that. Thank you very much.